So I actually used to live in a town that was pretty much exactly like this. So when I read this story, it brought back all these childhood memories, and I couldn't help but think, wow, that place is kind of creepy. The story is called The Man Who Walked Through Walls. Its funhouse mirrors are dusty and its roller coasters creak in the breeze. It's been empty since 1984, or so everyone thinks. So I wanted to tell you guys a story that has a very similar vibe to this one, except it takes place in an abandoned amusement park. In a decaying industrial area on the outskirts of Philadelphia lies an abandoned amusement park. Its Ferris wheel stands frozen mid-rotation against the bruised sky, kicking up clouds of dust. Laughter spills from the funhouse, and late-night strollers swear they hear the distant squeal of the tilt-a-whirl. But when dawn arrives, they find no one but empty swings. Some nights, the rusted chains of the carousel creak into motion. Startled, Nick backed away, then cautiously moved forward again. The glove opened and closed, beckoning. Intrigued, he reached out and felt a jolt run through him. The glove was icy cold. After suffering financial ruin, he took his own life in the park's dilapidated theater. But then he noticed the glove was no longer white. It was stained with what looked like dried blood. Some say his restless spirit keeps the park alive for one night every year. Disoriented, Nick shielded his eyes and turned toward the exit. Had he somehow traveled to another time? The cheerful sounds of the park-goers seemed discordant in the bright sunshine. As he watched, a little girl holding a melting ice cream cone skipped ahead of her parents, turning to wave at something Nick couldn't see. Her laughter sounded like shattering glass. Tall and gaunt, his face hidden in the shadows, he wore a tattered operator's uniform. He fled, racing away from the wheel and the man in pursuit. His gaze was fixed on Nick, a cruel smile curling his lips. As his vision cleared, he saw the world outside had changed. A single visitor who stumbles upon the grounds during the park's yearly reawakening is allowed to ride the attractions and play the games. Suddenly, he spotted the theater doors and surged forward. Turning, he saw the Ferris wheel's shadow falling across the ground. "It's time for your final attraction," he whispered. The man was right. The show wasn't over yet. The theater was no longer dilapidated. Instead, it was beautifully restored, its plush velvet seats and gilded balconies radiating old-fashioned elegance. Maybe if he could hide inside, he'd be safe. The faint melody of calliope music drifted on the breeze. Looking back at the theater, he saw the morning sun glinting off the marquee, which now read, "Enjoy the show," spelled out in chilling red neon. Back in the decaying present, he collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. And when he finally turned back to look at the park, the sun had vanished, replaced by ominous clouds. A chill wind whipped through the trees, carrying the echo of distant screams and the sickly sweet scent of decay. But to his horror, the figure stood framed in the doorway, his smile widening, inviting him to return to the timeless realm where the joys of yesterday mingle with the horrors that never end. "Come on," he croaked. "I haven't finished the show yet. You have to stay. You have to watch." He closed his eyes, waiting for whatever fate awaited him. Then he felt it. The cold fingers of the skeletal man wrapped around his shoulders. In their place stood neatly manicured gardens, well-paved roads, and gleaming shops. Still, he couldn't help but be entranced by the girl's ethereal beauty. Cars zoomed by on a nearby highway. People strolled arm in arm along the streets. Children chased each other in the park. It was as if he'd stepped into a world untouched by time. The glove lay on the seat beside him, still stained with blood. With a strength born of terror, he flung it away, stumbling back from the specter before him. But come morning, they're never seen again. Local legend says the park is haunted by its former operator, John Ferris. Enter our protagonist, a 22-year-old aspiring filmmaker named Nick. Panic rising, he ran after her, eager to find someone who could explain this impossible place. She beckoned, silently urging him to follow. He raced across the street, weaving between laughing couples and families, their faces all turned away from him, their voices blending into a dull roar. Fascinated by the supernatural, he spends his free time exploring supposedly haunted places. The smell of stale popcorn hung heavy in the air, mingling with the musk of decay. The velvet seats were ripped, the stage bare. But as Nick's eyes adjusted to the gloom, he saw it, a single white glove resting on the orchestra pit's edge. When he learned about Idlewild Park, he knew he had to investigate. As dusk fell on a misty October evening, he slipped through a hole in the park's barricades, making his way past the overgrown paths and graffiti-covered rides toward the theater. Its marquee flickered with a spectral glow, advertising a show that never was. Taking a shaky breath, he pushed open the creaking doors, stepping into darkness. As he approached, the glove twitched, then a voice echoed from the shadows behind him. "Care for a show?" Nick whirled around, finding no one. Suddenly, the theater doors burst open, flooding the room with blinding light. Gone were the crumbling rides and tangled weeds. Astonished, he touched a blooming flower. Its petals were ice cold, just like the glove. Was this real? A family walked past, their faces blurred, their voices muffled. It was like trying to focus on a dream. He wanted to call out to her, but his voice wouldn't obey. The girl led him to the Ferris wheel. He watched as she skipped up the steps, then paused, glancing back at him with vacant eyes. Terror gripping his heart, he realized this place wasn't real. It was a trap, an illusion meant to lure him deeper into its clutches. As he neared the Ferris wheel, a figure emerged from behind the structure. "Enjoying the show?" he rasped, his voice like grinding gears. Nick recoiled, fear lending him speed. His breath ragged, he stumbled through the throng of people, their forms blurring as he struggled to outrun his pursuer. Bursting through the doors, he gasped at the sight before him. He glanced back, expecting to see the man nowhere in sight. Nick scrambled up the stairs, desperate to escape. As he reached the top row, he heard the unmistakable sound of grinding metal. Nick slumped down, defeated. He screamed, but no sound came out. The man leaned closer, his icy breath on Nick's ear. Nick's eyes snapped open. The man shrieked, recoiling as if burned. "No, you don't understand," he rasped, his voice filled with anguish. Ignoring him, Nick scrambled for the exit, bursting through the doors. Sunlight filtered through the grime-coated glass, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The Ferris wheel groaned overhead. The scent of popcorn hung heavy. Then silence. He was alone. Shaking and sobbing, he stumbled to his feet. He ran. He didn't stop running until he reached his car. Nick never returned to Idlewild Park, but every October when the leaves turn and the wind grows cold, he swears he hears the phantom calliope calling to him from the mist.